I pointed out something. I'll say it now, even though it's not this parsha. We're about to celebrate the receiving of Torah at Sinai, Shavuos. And we find multiple times in the Torah, regarding the study of Torah, we say in Kriya Shema, Asher nuch b'tzav hayom eschem, I command you today to love God. We say this every day in the Kriya Shema. So the Rashi cites the Midrash. Did God command us today? So we draw from this, that whenever we study Torah, it should always be the equivalent as if it was given today. And it's alluded to multiple times in different contexts that when we study Torah, it has to be chadoshos. It has to be as if it was given today. We find that the Jews came to Midbar Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. It says they traveled from Refidim. That's where we had the encounter with Amalek, and we came to Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which is when the counting takes place here. But this is the second year. This is the second year. This was speaking of the first year. We came in Sivan. We came to Midbar Sinai. So, but the Torah adds another two words, Bayom Hazeh. They came to Midbar Sinai on that day, Bayom Hazeh. It could say they came to Midbar Sinai at the beginning of the month, beginning of the third month. I mean, here we're speaking the count, we're speaking about, this is the second month. There was the beginning of the third month. So Rashi over there cites Chazal, the Midrash. What does it say Bayom Hazeh? Could have omitted the words Bayom Hazeh on that day. Could have said they came to Midbar Sinai at the beginning of the third month. What does it have to say Bayom Hazeh? So Rashi cites Chazal. From here we learn Yu Beinecha Kechadoshos. When they arrived at Sinai, it should be also Chadoshos. So most people, you read it, you just gloss over it. It doesn't somehow resonate or touch you in any way. So the difficulty is, the actual receiving the Torah at Sinai, when you study Torah, it should be, although it was given thousands of years ago, today when we study it, it should be with the same excitement, freshness, as if it was given today. But there it's speaking about coming to Sinai to receive the Torah a few days later. Even that excitement should be. So not only should you approach it with this newness, with this excitement, as if you're received it today, but even being in a position to receive it, even there, it should be with the same level of newness. So the question is why? Firstly, why when you study Torah should it always be with that equivalent of given today? That's number one. Secondly, even approaching it, it should be with that same level of excitement. So you could say on a very simple level, because anything which we feel becomes something which is like old hat, you don't apply yourself as well. But something that's new, your level of application and focus is much greater. So therefore, what the Torah is telling us, that whenever you study Torah to be able to maximize on it, it should always be with that level of excitement. Or at least, or even a little better, that to be able to comprehend the Torah, you need a certain degree of siyata d'shmaya. So if you see it as something which is ordinary, Hashem says, you know something, you don't appreciate what you have, you don't merit that divine assistance to be able to process it, to come upon its truth. But if you see it as something special, as similar to what we spoke about, Yogata Motzosa, that if you toil in Torah, you come upon its truth. Similarly, you have to minimally see it as something special. There's a degree of excitement. So if you have that degree of excitement, you merit the siyata d'shmaya to come upon its truth. That all this is on a very simple level. So identically, it's not only when you study it, even when you approach it, you're going to study it, there should be that level of excitement to merit the siyata d'shmaya. Now, the Gemara tells us in two locations that the only antidote to Torah, to the evil inclination, is the study of Torah. There's no other antidote. Barasi Yitzhara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. Meaning, because of one's conflict of interest as a human being, due to the Adam eating of the Eitz Hadas, that we all have this element of evil within us because we are descendants of Adam, who ingested the fruit which contained the Ra, the evil. So therefore, there's always this conflict of interest. And when a person has a conflict of interest, we're lacking in clarity. So as a result of that, the evil inclination is able to outwit us and outsmart us. So unless somehow you have an antidote to actually incapacitate that force, we're all victims. Hashem says, but I created a Torah. Barasi Yitzhara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. The Torah is the antidote. Now, there are two opinions in the Gemara in Sukkah when the Yitzhara approaches us every day. One opinion is he's Mischadish Olav B'chol Yom. He approaches you with a newness every day. That's how the Yitzhara approaches us. The word is Mischadesh. And the other opinion in the Gemara Sukkah is Mizgaber. He from the word, he overwhelms us. He overpowers us every day. That's the question. Is he's Mischadesh or is Mizgaber? So the commentators explain what's the difference between Mischadesh and Mizgaber. A person normally does something which he initially has a desire for. You enjoy it, but over time, you tire of it. That's the nature of a person. You do something initially. Person gets himself lahavdil, a new car, all excited. He drives it for 2-3 months. It's not the excitement somehow starts waning. Doesn't have the same excitement. You eat a food. No, your wife serves you the same food. You married Baruch Hashem for 48 years. You say, you don't say a word because Baruch Hashem, you have a good marriage. You don't say, but after a while, it's not exciting. You see that same breakfast on the table, you eat it, you go to work, you don't say a word. You lose interest. But yet, when it comes to sin, you could have violated that area of sin endless times. Every time when you approach it, it's what the temptation as if it's the first time. The Yetzer Hara, the evil thing, has the ability to present it in a light, in a context, as if you never crossed that line before. That's the ability of the Yetzer Hara. He's Mischadesh. Every day comes when he approaches you with a chidush. There's a newness. And therefore, it's like you're experiencing it for the first time. So if the study of Torah is the only antidote, so how do you have to use and ingest that antidote with no less chidush? It always has to have that same level of excitement and newness, and only then could you counter the newness, the new presentation which the evil inclination is presenting to you. That's the reason why it has to be mischadesh. You beinecha kechadoshos. Therefore, every time you study the Torah, it's as if it's the first time you're studying it, as the sin, when he presents it to you, it's always like the first time, as if you never crossed the line before. The other interpretation, what's mizgaber? There's certain sins that we have no desire for. For instance, a Jew is not permitted to wear a combination of wool and linen. I mean, a person doesn't desire it. Person, food, sex, acquisition of assets, we desire that. Because that plays straight into our ego, into our desire. It satisfies us. Whether the garment has wool or linen doesn't really make a difference. There, somehow he has to overpower us. It takes a little bit of convincing. He has to push you across the finish line, so to say. Therefore, that's the other interpretation, Mizgaber. Okay? Now, we say every day in davening, Mechadesh B'tu v'chol yom tov ma'asav reishis. God renews creation every moment. Everything is a renewal. The Torah, when it was given at Sinai, it's true, it was given close to 4,000 years ago at Sinai, but factually, the process is an ongoing process. It's as if he gives it every single day. The ability to approach Torah, that event, it's an everyday event. It happened then, but factually, the ability to process it, that's an ongoing event. So factually, it's a newness. When you experience Torah, it's as if, because at this moment, Hashem is giving you that ability, it's as if it's being presented for the first time today. Because if the basis for the world, if not for the Torah, the world doesn't exist. So what's fueling the world? Why is God maintaining the world and willing the world? It's directly rooted in the Torah itself. So the newness of the world is dependent on the Torah being continuously studied. So that those energies are continuously being generated due to the Torah that's being generated. As a result of that, that's the reason why you have to experience it as if it's the first time. The material you don't have to experience as if it's the first time. Material is material. But the Torah itself, which is the basis for all existence, that you have to experience as if it's for the first time. As a result of that, there's a question which is asked. Okay, there's a question which is asked. I mean, it's a separate question. Every Yom Tov, we have certain ways we commemorate the Yom Tov. Sukkot, we have the lulav, we have the sukkah. Pesach, we have the matzah. Rosh Hashanah, we blow the shofar. Yom Kippur, we fast. Shavuos doesn't have anything that identifies it as anything unique. You celebrate it like a regular Yom Tov. But that it's Zman Matan Torahseinu, that it's the day that God gave the Torah to us. We don't in any way commemorate it. There's nothing innate in the Yom Tov which identifies it as Zman Matan Torahseinu. And the question is asked, why? Why Shavuos doesn't have its symbol, which would identify it as nationhood? We became the Goy Kodesh. We became the Mamlech's Kohanim. The question which is asked. So what they say is because Torah is something which you have to engage continuously every day. Other holidays, it's unique to that moment. The Torah itself, what is nationhood? Nationhood is that it's all dependent on the Torah. Since Torah is something which we have to engage, and it should be an integral part of our life continuously, therefore, it has no specific symbolism, and therefore it's just the day itself, that's when it began. We were introduced then, and we just continue doing it. Every other Yom Tov, it's limited to those days. Therefore, those days have to be identified through the various symbols. The sukkah, the lulav, the matzah. Shavuos is the essence of Shavuos is the Torah. The Torah is not limited to Shavuos. And because it's not limited to Shavuos, it only begins then, but it continues. Therefore, there's no symbolism for Shavuos itself.